Mark here for another great Wisdom and Knowledge 5 podcast episode. And this week I discussed a topic that I've discussed before on this podcast, but this is with someone who has actually been through this and actually experienced it. And my heart goes out to you, Rebecca. We are going to be
Thank
talking about lithium ion batteries in the smart meter fires. So please begin by, wherever you want to begin in telling your, story as to what happened.
Well, first I'm going to apologize for the shaking and the moving and the noise here. I've got my dogs here joining us, uh, and they just had food, so they're all excited and they want to
Mhm.
like I don't know. I'll be
Oh, it's
do
fine.
things like toys. So they've got some toys coming at me. You might see some toys flying here and there.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
But it. I'd like to start out by saying, I'm okay. My family's okay with everything we went through. Um, it was quite the harrowing experience, and journey afterwards. And I'm still going through it, obviously, here talking with you. And one second, all done, all done. Take a break. No, leave it. Take a break. Thank you. Go lay down. You too. Go lay down.
Mhm.
Uh, so I'm gonna begin by just kind of talking about this house that we lived in. And the house was probably about 3,000 square feet. I had a lot of stuff in it. A lot of my grandparents and great aunts and uncles, my son's father, all who had passed. And my son's father was Native American. And so there was a lot of antiques and vintage and indigenous stuff. And um, I had quite the full life. That the house was like my dream house, quite literally. I had dreamed this house into being. I kept saying I wanted a round house, and we were my husband at the time. We'd go out and we were looking at these dome houses, and I was like, I felt like these walls were caving in on me, just kind of coming in like living in a cave. And I kept saying round house, and um, eventually one day we were driving around the neighborhood and we saw this kind of burnt out house, and he said, hey, let's fix up this one. And I'm like, you don't fix anything, I want the perfect house. And I got like really upset because we had been out looking for houses that day, and we had been going through this little town, and that was next to the town that we wanted to be in. And then as we're driving through, I look up, driving along this right after that house, and I'm upset, and I was kind of yelling at him. And we're driving through, and I look up and I see this round house, a
Hmm.
2-story, kind of like an upside down wedding cake or pixelated mushroom. So round, and then on the bottom it was smaller. So it's kind of like a smaller
Okay.
and then on top. It was really, really cool. And it had all these beautiful windows on the south side face, on this hill that it was set on. And I looked up and I just kind of started crying because I realized, wow, this is my dream house. That it had the yard, it had the playground, it was big enough for all the kids and us. And I thought, wow, that's my dream house. And now I'm ruined. I've seen this house and nothing's going to be good enough. And it was hard enough before trying to find a house. And then I just kind of started crying. And I looked up, and the butterflies were flying, fluttering about, and the flowers were blooming, and everybody in the car got quiet. And I said, like that, and everybody was like, yeah. And then as we drove around, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, accepted my fate. Here's this perfect house, and I'm kind of ruined. And we're driving around, and by the mailbox, here's the for sale sign, and
Mm.
immediately that's my house.
Yeah.
And so there's more to that story, but for this telling of it, I'll leave it at that.
Hmm.
Mm. So we moved in to this house, and and we were living there. I lived there for 13 years, and at the time that the fire happened, it was my son and I were at home, and our cats. My youngest child was off in France with their school trip, on their school trip that they saved up for 4 years for. And and my son was downstairs and I was downstairs and taking care of some plants. And uh, all of a sudden I, you know, hear my son running up the stairs, boom, 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 boom,
Mm-hmm.
which was odd because he never moves fast. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's just like he's gonna take his time, even if he's late, even if he's gonna make somebody else late, he doesn't care. He's gonna get there when he gets there. And so I was like, that's weird. And then all of a sudden he comes running down, bam, 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 and I hear him yelling, you know, and I couldn't quite make it out. And I get out through the room and through the bathroom and into the hallway. And he's yelling, Eli's room's on fire. And I was like, what? And I look up and I come around to the staircase, which was in the middle of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it was a spiral staircase that went up. And I'm standing there and he's yelling at me, where's the fire extinguisher? And I'm like, I don't know, it's around here somewhere. And we had this huge fire extinguisher. And um, I had fire extinguishers all over the house. I had alarms in the house. And it was at that point that I actually heard the fire alarm upstairs in going off. I hadn't heard it downstairs because they were not all attached, singular fire alarms.
Oh
That's
yeah.
another that's another issue. The new house has all the fire alarms attached together. And
Okay.
anyway, I see smoke coming out of the bedroom, and I went running up. And when I had run up, my son had seen the fire extinguisher, which was right behind me. So he grabs the fire extinguisher and he's kind of coming up behind me and pulling everything off and getting ready to fire it. And luckily he knows how to do all of that. And I was going up, and this one piece of paper floated out of the room and landed on the carpet, and it was on fire. And I took off a towel on the banister and I put it down, and I'm stomping this fire out. And I look back and I have to laugh at that. And then I start going into the hallway. And as I went into the hallway, so the rooms are all in a circle, and they're all kind of like pieces of pie going through. So I get in and I look into my youngest bedroom, and the whole back wall is on fire. The whole thing is just roaring fire. And my first thought was, well, here we go. Let's get out of here. Little background. I wasn't sure if I wanted to say this on here. No, stay. We're okay. Not right now. Go lay down. I know, baby. I know. Good boy. Good boy. When I was young, well, since I can remember, I've seen things that were going to happen before they
Okay.
happened.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was young, I had this, as my mom would call them, nobody, you're okay. My mom would call them proofs of knowledge, because she would have them too. Although I didn't know about this until until after her death. Actually, she left me a tape. I digress. Anyways, she acknowledged that I would have these because I would say things, and my family was like, oh, and then would happen. They're like, oh, well, she did it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So from a young age, I was doing this, and I don't know how old I was, but I remember thinking that someday my house was going to burn down, and this always just kind of stayed with me. And I remember it was because my grandmother had told me a story about how her bed had caught on fire and almost burned her house down. And it was that at that time I just had this knowing that someday my house was going to burn down. And I always kind of like put it off to the side. I was like, that's not going to happen because that's, is because my grandma told the story, and most likely that's just the thought that came to my head as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I do this all the time. I'm just like, I'll make an excuse to be like, no, 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 that's not going to happen. And then it does. So as I'm looking at this wall of fire in my daughter's room, I think to myself, here we go. Oh, also, and when we moved into this house, first moved into the house, I remember looking at the empty house and thinking, this is the one. This is the
Mm-hmm.
house
Yeah.
that's going to burn down.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
I took it off and I pushed it off to the side. And And so here I am looking at this wall of fire, and I think to myself, well, here we go. This is it. And I'm backing up because my hair, which is long, was behind me. I took one step back, and all of a sudden, this fire came and flashed and just rolled right over my head. And I start backing up, and I'm putting my hair out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm yelling at my son, "Get out of the house! Get out of the house now!" And so I'm in it. All of this happens really quick. Like, this story takes forever, but it all happens within probably less than a minute that we're
Mm-hmm.
out of the house. From the time that I come out of that bedroom, with the plans that I'm out of the house. So here I am running back, and I'm running through my bedroom to get outside. Because luckily there was a lot of no baby, there was a lot of doors, and I'm running out of the house, and I see my purse, and I grab my purse, which was sitting there on my bed. The handle's up, so all I had to do was swoop it up into my arm, and I'm running out, and because I'm like, I need my wallet, I need the keys to get the car, because the house, I know at this, like, immediately the house is going to be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm running out, and I run out to my van, and now my van is parked right next to where that fire is coming out, and the fire is coming all up on the van and on the driver's side. So I get in the passenger side and get in there and put the key in and start it up, and I've got flames just coming up on my face and just fire. Luckily the window was up. And that day I had just gotten the title to the car, and I had almost brought it in. And I thought, I'll bring it in next time I go in. And I left it was there on the seat. Little things that kind of came up and made all the difference to making life a little less hard. So
Mm-hmm.
the flames are coming up, and I'm starting it up, and I'm backing the car up, and I'm driving down, and I get down to the bottom half of the house, because that was the top half of the house I was at. And I stop the car, and I get out to check to see if it was flaming anywhere, and it is not. And I'm running around, and I get to the bottom, and I yell at my son. I'm saying, "Are you out of the house? Get out of the house!" Um, and all of a sudden, I see a computer fly out of the door like a frisbee, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
yelling at him, get out of the house now!" And he's like, "Yeah," he's yelling, "I'm out." I'm like, "I'm right here." "No, you're not." And he comes running out. He's got an armful of stuff, and he turns around, and he sees and I see the whole room just enveloped in flames around, just as he comes out. And
Mm-hmm.
he just throws everything that he pulled out on the ground, and he's just like, it's like, fuck, basically. And I said, "Keenan, call 911." And at that point, I have neighbors yelling, "Is everybody at the house? Is there anybody in the house?" And I'm saying, yelling back, "Everybody's out." I am assuming the cats are out, which they were.
Mm-hmm.
And so I drive the car down to the street. He is calling 911, and I hear him, saying, as I'm going, "No, you're gonna need to get down here. Yeah, this house is gone, but you need to save the other houses up here." And around about probably about an hour before the fire started, all of the doors were open, because we get a nice wind up here. And this happened on July 18th, 2018.
Okay.
It's been a while. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been a minute. And but we get this lovely wind up here that clears out all the heat of the day. And so the doors were open, a lot of the windows were open. And it was still a bit breezy at that time. And so what had happened was, the wind came in to this circular house and went like this. And that's what happened with the fire. And it went,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a sunroof that was right there on top of in the middle of the house. And that fire ended up going straight up out of that like a Roman candle. So I'm driving down, and I get down to the bottom of the house, or the bottom of the driveway, and across the street. And and I park the car, and I get out, and I'm dressed in like a white tank top and boxer shorts, and
Mm-hmm.
that's it. That's it. Uh, and Well, anyway, so I get out there and I'm, by the time I get out there, I'm watching my son walking down the driveway, and behind him, the windows are blowing out, and it was like a freaking action movie. And
Mm-hmm.
he just walking his usual, and he's pissed.
Mm-hmm.
So he's walking down the driveway like that, and just the windows are blowing out behind him. It is just dark at that time, and people are starting to gather outside watching this craziness. And there's flames coming up all around the house, and there's just flames coming up around from the top windows that were blowing out.
Mm-hmm.
The middle had a Roman candle, shooting flame coming up through it, and now the downstairs windows were starting to blow out. So the fire trucks got there relatively quick. It seemed like it took forever,
Mm-hmm.
but it was relatively quick. Um, and they got to use their brand new truck that had a big old um, fire cannon on it. Thankfully, they had that. It did save, I think, rest of the hill from going up. They couldn't get up my driveway because there was a big tree in the way.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So luckily they had that, and they saved there was fire coming through the bushes next door, going towards my neighbor's house. They got right on that. It's okay, Kai. It's okay. They got right on that. And I ended up, shh, okay. I ended up collapsing on the driveway and just bawling, and I was crying, and I could see the outlines of my plants upstairs, just like it was there and it disappeared from the fire. They burned that quick, and I was just crying. Some of these plants that I'd had were also older than my children.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff that I had in there, I'm very sentimental, and I had a lot of, I said, stuff from my family,
Mm-hmm.
things that passed on. Mordecai, Mira, it's okay. Probably somebody walking their dog. And so there I am. I'm collapsed on the driveway, and I am bawling. I am just, yeah, I am sobbing in front of everybody, and I can't stop. It's just, that's my life.
Mm-hmm.
Going and playing is my dream house. Um, and as I'm crying, I feel part of myself detach, and I'm looking down at myself, and I can see myself crying, but I'm in a very like detached, logical mindset, looking at myself, and and looking at the fire, and I think to myself, I know, I was like, well, this is really bad. This is really bad, but everybody's out, everybody's okay, and in a year's time, it will all be different,
Mm-hmm.
and everything will be okay. And that is kind of my mantra that gets me through life, um, through life's adventures, we'll call them. And this is one of the life's adventures: is everything will be okay. Um, and like I said in the beginning, when I first started talking to you, that everything is okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a journey, it's been a struggle, and so after the fire, and right away, I've got a fire investigators start talking to me, and the police are right behind me, listening and taking, or the police investigator listening and taking notes, um, and just asking about things, like because explosions in the house, and what it was the fire extinguishers were exploding
Yeah.
in the house.
Okay. Mm.
So anywho, um, and so it was, the neighbors were going by, and some were giving me, dirty looks, and some were giving me hugs, and some were checking in on me. Others were just, talking. I had other neighbors that left their house and took off as soon as they saw the fire, and forgot their dog. I don't know
Mm.
how they forgot their dog. One of the first things I thought about was, I hope my cats are out. Um, uh, Figured they were probably the first ones out, if they were even in the house. So we I ended up going, actually, the ex-husband ended up coming up at that time, because he lived not too far, and they saw the smoke as they were coming home, him and his new wife, and they came up, and he ended up like doing some recording. I told him, record this, and he's like, why? I'm like,
Hmm.
for insurance purposes. Because it's like, because that's what you do. You take pictures and you record. That's your
Sure.
thing. Give him something to be busy with, and this was something I wanted to look at later. I knew I would. I ended up looking at that recording a few days ago, and it was intense. um, it was disappointing, in that the most intense part of the fire, he got like a few shots, like 30 seconds, here, and 35 or whatever second shots uh, of it here and there. And then later, he gets, as he's walking around talking to people, like 5 minutes of just his shoes.
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, this is why this is why we're divorced.
Hmm.
Anywho, he tried. He got what he got. It is what it is. And he did give me a ride to my friend's house afterwards. And as we were walking away, one of the neighbors passed us, and she
Hmm.
walks. She goes, "I'm so sorry." I was like,
Okay.
"Wow." This is a neighbor that has never given me the time of day from the time that we
Hmm.
moved in here, and it's just she's always had this really kind of weird energy. And my other neighbors, my cool neighbors, as I call them, they have confirmed to me that, just, it's not you, don't worry about it. I'm like, okay, fine.
Hmm.
But the way she walked by and she said that, and then later she spread like this rumor that because there was a dog out there, that it was a drug sniffing dog, and that we had been cooking,
Species.
it must have been cooking drugs, right?
Yeah.
Anywho, I digress. She goes by and she does that, and my son like calls her out. He goes, don't, don't be fake with us. Don't say you're sorry when you're not. You're obviously
Hmm.
not. And I was just like, oh God, not right now. This is not what I need.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're continuing to walk by, and then another guy walks by. I later find out his name is Matt. I'm not going to say his last name, and he's a wannabe journalist. Um, and what he does is he goes out to um, places of tragedy and hardship, and he takes pictures, and he doesn't interview people who are involved, and he makes up his own story with what he gathers from the crowd around him. Anyways, he walked by with his camera in front of him and his tongue hanging out. He was all excited. He was so excited to be, coming up on this, and I watched him in my just absolute amazement of the kinds of human beings that are out there, when something like this happens to somebody. Um, and I took note of him, and I walked by.
Hmm.
Quite a bit of drama happened around that. I called him out on Facebook, out online, because he posted something on our community page, and I'm like, wow, that is absolutely not okay.
No,
And
that's
my friend had,
mhm.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, that's uncalled for. Is what I was. Yeah, you don't do
Yeah,
that.
no, no. My friend had called him out online, at first, and then so we're walking away. The ex and his wife dropped us off at my best friend's house, who I consider my sister, and I collapsed on the lawn, and I sobbed. There's so much to the story. I could go on and on for hours. We don't have that time. I just wanted to, like, well, I'm going to say a little bit more on this. At that point, I realized that my youngest, who's in France at the time, is going to hear about this
Mhm.
online before I can get to them. And so I go inside, and I talk to my friend. I explained what happened. I said, I need to call, um, I need to call Eli right now. And so I called them, and actually it was right. I almost called them, and it was that moment Keenan comes in. He goes, "Mom, I just got a text. They're asking if the house is okay." And I told him that, no, it's gone. So they had found out from people posting online. What a horrible way to find out
Hmm.
in the middle of this once in a lifetime trip for
Yeah.
them. Um, and so so now here's the family is devastated. We were all quite devastated, all of us, and a lot more happened. Digressions from neighbors and the police and um, and fighting with insurance has been absolutely horrible. And trying to get a house built and dealing with
Hmm.
with that babies. I've
Hmm.
been through a lot. It's been very traumatic, and
Yeah.
you feel it. My dog agrees. My dog, she goes, yeah, it's so
Hmm.
horrible. And it was. In the end, we're all okay. I've got a new house that I'm living in. It took getting to the point of the whole point of this. It took a year to get to the point of actually tearing down the burnt house, the
Hmm.
one.
Hmm.
A year in there digging through it, mostly myself with some help from friends. First thing I pulled out pictures. I was able to save pictures.
Hmm.
Very little that I was able to save, like some iron pans, some outside iron furniture that I was able to. Well, it's still kind of burnt and rusted, but it still works. Um, and anyways, but it was the pictures that was the main thing. Got those out. I spent a year digging through it and taking pictures for insurance to prove to insurance what I had.
Hmm.
Um, and in the end, I'm glad I did that because they did put me under deposition because they didn't believe that I had all that I had, that I ended up having to make a full list of what I had, where
Hmm.
I got it, when I got it, how much it was worth, how long I've had it. They made me do a list and I had to list out everything. Luckily during that time, this, we'll call him a gentleman, um,
Hmm.
came up to me while I was digging through the house. He said, "Hey, I actually watched the fire happen. I watched the smoke of the fire happen from where I was at. I live down the street." Okay, baby, okay.
Hmm.
And he goes, I work with people who've had who have to deal with insurance companies, and my company helps you get everything that you can for a certain percentage of your insurance money,
Hmm.
right? And so, so he was a shark. He was one of the many sharks that came by. Um, However, he was a very useful shark. Um,
Hmm.
and I said, well, what do you do? How do you do that? What do I, so what does that mean? And sometimes, I just asked a lot of questions,
Hmm.
and then I started
Smart.
taking, I took a lot of notes and I wrote a lot of notes down. And I never did use a service, but I used all the information that he gave me. And it was a lot of work. It was a
Hmm.
lot of work. I did end up having a lawyer on hand. I never had to pay a retainer, but he did help me with some information. A wonderful local lawyer that I really appreciate that he gave me his time without charging me. Um,
Hmm.
Anyhow, so here, that's why it took a long time to get the house to the point of being torn down. And 3 weeks before it was, not 3 weeks, it was, sorry, a month before it was going to be torn down, I called the demolition company and they came out to check it out. And they said, hey, there is this smart meter still on your house. We
Hmm.
can't tear it down until that is gone. And I said, and they said, that's weird. Usually that's the first thing they take off. And I said,
Hmm.
huh, note taken. That's weird. And so I said, okay. So I called up the electric company and I said, hey, there's this meter. I can't get my house dealt with until you take this meter off.
Hmm.
So um, they said, okay, when is the demolition going to happen? So I told them. They said, okay, well, we will be out this date, and it was the day before demolition. And I thought, that's weird.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
the time, they have all this time to come do that, and um, and so that day, I thought, well, I'm going to come out there. I want to be there when they take it off. I got
hmm.
there at 8:30 in the morning. It was already taken off. It was gone. There was nobody there. And so and I sent you a picture of this. I'm not sure
Yeah, I
you
did
saw
get it. Yeah.
you saw
Hmm.
that. And so, there is this the just the empty space where the meter was attached, right? So you got the meter, and
Yeah,
it's
do you want to
attached.
show it? I can show it to the
Yeah, absolutely.
audience. So here is the picture. Let me pull it up right here and share it. Let me put it on full screen. Just one second. And pull it up. Okay, so describe this picture right here. This is where the smart meter was.
Right, right. So if you look at it, you can see that there's black all around, and like right in where it was attached to, where it's going into the wall. And you can
Hmm.
see there's also like there's uh, if you can really look at it, you'll just see where the burn is,
Hmm.
from where they'd taken it out. Um, and and so what happened is it went in through here and into the wall,
Mm.
and then it went up up the wall into the vent system, and that's why it came out up through the vent system into Eli's room,
Ah,
because he was,
yes. Okay, I see it. Yeah.
and that's why the fire was upstairs in that room. It actually started downstairs on the other side of my son's wall, and and the the fire investigators had said, it was unknown source. It started, there in his wall, and I'm thinking to myself, like, how incompetent or
Hmm.
cover, whichever it is, or both, do you need to be that you didn't make sure that the electric company came and took that off to check that, when it's
Hmm.
right behind that is where that fire started.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they dug up into his wall. They dug up on the other side of the wall, but they didn't
Hmm.
go around and look at that, which was right on the other side. So, I mean, anyways, dogs, not under the table, please. Come on, move. Come on, guys, go, move it. Leave, leave, leave. Oh, babies, they want to they want to play with me.
Ah,
So
yes.
so that's what that's and so I took this picture, and I went home, and for 3 days I did a deep dive on smart meters,
Hmm.
and I found countless and countless of articles and news stories, and in instances of where this has happened and where people have reported it and people are trying to get help. And sorry,
No, you're fine.
and 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 um and so this 3 day deep dive, I really overwhelmed myself with information, and I was
Hmm.
completely trashed afterwards. It was another trauma on top of all the trauma. Hush, leave it. Okay. Um, and leave it. Okay, leave it.
Hmm.
And so I found several things that really made the case of what I'm going to say next. One of which is an article. It is a
Okay.
peer reviewed article published in a journal, and I cannot, honestly, I had it all up on my computer. I did send you, I sent you that too. I sent you several things, which
Yeah,
I
I did read those. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a 50-page article. I had all of that up, and I moved my computer, and I don't know how everything got closed down.
I can put
Moved.
it in the notes. I should be able to put it in the notes of the
You know what? That would be
podcast
awesome.
episode. I'll
That
see
would
what I
be
can
awesome.
do for sure.
I was gonna yeah, I was actually gonna go through. Actually, you know what? I just realized I
Hmm.
did I did take notes on that. I just need to bring up my document.
Okay.
Um and I wanted to read a few of these things on this, but as this is coming up, I'll talk a little bit more about it. So this peer-reviewed article, uh, which I'm gonna read it from itself, so I'm not making a mistake in that.
Okay.
on because that's why I took these notes. So I'm sure I was going to say what I was going to say correctly. I sent the article, I sent the picture, and um, there was something else that I sent. Well, it was the oh, that's right. I sent those two things to the fire investigator
Mm-hmm.
um, and the fire chief. And I said, hey, look at this. Also, I want the report of the fire. I had not received the fire report yet. I said, please send that to me. And what do you think of this? And the fire chief sent me back an email saying, that he and the fire investigator talked it over with each other, and
Mm-hmm.
they both agreed that they think this is probably what most likely started the fire. He didn't say most likely. He said they think that's what started the fire,
Yeah.
right? And so it was just straight up, and I sent you that
That's
email.
cool that they're legit like that. You know what I mean? I mean, they always seem down to earth people to begin
Well,
with.
despite the possible incompetence, I mean, I don't know what to call it, them not
Mm-hmm.
looking at, the electrical box, which is electrical fire. Um, and anywho, that was right, sort of right there on the other side. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that he did come around, and they acknowledged that. So yes. So now I've got his email stating that him and then the fire investigator think that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the peer-reviewed article, the picture, um, and I'm sending all three of these things to several lawyers.
Yeah.
Um, and I sent it to lawyer after lawyer, and nobody would touch it. And
Mm-hmm.
it didn't surprise me. I already knew that this, was going to happen, but I couldn't not. I had to try. I had to try.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of the things that I had found on this 3-day deep dive,
Yeah.
um, the last thing that I watched, I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't watch it anymore, um, was because they had video of it too. Was an apartment building burning down, and
Mm-hmm.
people jumping out of it, and
Oh,
so many
yeah.
people died. It was a large building, and so many people died.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And 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 in these articles, oh, here's my so in this peer-reviewed article, they went over several things that must be here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, nope, that is not it. Get to that peer-reviewed article. But yeah, lawyers, nobody would touch it. In the article, uh, it talked about how um, lawyers weren't taking on the cases,
Mm-hmm.
and companies weren't taking on. I also sent this to my insurance company. So I sent it to my insurance company, and they said, well, we've already paid out. The investigation's closed. There's nothing more we're going to do
Of
about it.
course. Mm-hmm.
Um, and probably not loud. Where is this? Um, and so, yeah, I tried contacting journalists, somebody who had actually been writing about this, and they never got back to me. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they ever even saw it. So I'm trying to find the article here so I
Oh
can.
yeah, you're fine. Mm-hmm.
Um, it would help if I actually labeled my files
Mm-hmm.
here. I haven't
Yeah.
done that in things apparently. It should be up here, untitled fire.
But there was no cases where they took it, was there?
So yeah, no, they wouldn't take it. And the thing with this
Mm-hmm.
article that they're saying is that insurance companies won't take it on, and lawyers won't take it on, um, because it's a quagmire of nobody taking responsibility for these smart meters. The smart meters, in this article, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about what I know about it, and you
Mm-hmm.
can fill in there. The smart meters were tested, were developed, and then they tested these smart meters. And in the article, in this peer review article, they talked about all the different ways that they tested it and the ways that they did not test it. And that this was the issue of why there's an issue with the smart meters, is they were
Mm-hmm.
not testing these smart meters in real world situations, on houses that had older wiring. My house was built in 1979.
Okay.
Um, and it's a lot of the houses with older wiring, they did not test it in real world situations with power surges.
Mm.
Um, and the problem with these meters is that they're not shutting off with the
Okay.
power surges. They're letting the full surge go through. There should be a trip. It should trip and shut off, which is what the old meters would do, with
Mm-hmm.
the analog would do with the power surges. Um, and they're not shutting off. It's searching through, and then it catches um, the materials inside, whether it's the ion batteries or whatever, the wiring or whatever else is going on, is catching it on fire. A lot of these fires are starting. They're on the outside and they're burning the outside of it, and then the burn actually starts on the outside of the house and is burning the outside. A lot of them. This one, the power surge went through and it hit my old wiring, and it couldn't handle that, and so the wiring was made for an analog, not for what was set up with
Yeah.
smart meters. These smart meters are not set up, and they're putting them on all houses, and you have to really fight to keep an analog meter.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's okay, baby. I know, I'm all excited. I'm so
Mm-hmm.
sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's okay. And so a lot of people are losing their lives. A lot of people are losing their houses. Um, with all that I went through, I was blessed in that I was able, we were all alive, that we could get out.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to have insurance and be able to have the wherewithal, and I had to take a year off of school to deal with this. Um, um, and I was able to get everything that I could from insurance. Everybody, from builders to the city, took everything they could from me, and neighbors took everything they could from me from my insurance, or stopping the build, or making issues for me to rebuild my house. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that in the end I didn't have enough to finish, and so I still have things going on that are not finished in my house, like um, the yard, especially, and some wall that I need to have built up, to keep the dirt from falling into the yard that my house is set down into the hill.
Mm-hmm.
um, Long story short, anyways, there's still a lot I need done, and I would have had the money had it not gone out to um, in so many other directions.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, like, still, even with this house, which I appreciate, and I'm grateful for, I still mourn my roundhouse.
Mm-hmm.
It's, that was my dream house, and
Sure.
it's not the same. It's not the same. I wasn't able to build another house like that. Because when they say like and kind value, um, um, it's they're not going to give me the money to build an actual, that even the square footage of the house that I had before.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
So there's all kinds of ways we could go on this, but the smart meter itself, I do not know why I cannot find this in my documents.
Hmm.
Um, there were some things I wanted to read on that.
Yeah. This one.
Sure.
Okay, so you got the document pulled up. Let's discuss it.
Yeah, I took some things off the document, and also I have the uh, fire report response from the investigator. This is from the fire chief. In speaking with the incident commander, from the information gathered, it is our opinion that the likely cause of this fire was an overload in the smart meter attached to the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's from that. It's interesting. Um, it's interesting because he wrote on here he's attaching a report that he found regarding this type of meters and the issues they have caused in terms of fire. He goes, well, I cannot speak to that particular meter at your residence. It is reasonable based on the photo and investigation evidence that it points to this as being the likely cause, having eliminated all other types of causes, including overload equipment in the house, which they had.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so the information that he was talking about was actually information that I had sent him. So like, I'm glad you read it. Cool, cool. I thought it was just interesting. Like he didn't realize that I had been the one to send that.
Oh,
Um,
yes. Okay, okay. Mm-hmm.
and maybe he was writing that for future you know use you know for future use for me. I don't know. Um,
So I know when
so
I've interviewed on it, my friend Matt that I interviewed, who's also in Oregon, he brought up a great point that a lot of these people they don't know. They don't know to look for the smart meter, so they don't know anything about it. So they're just not knowledgeable in it.
and I don't get it because there's a lot happening. They're happening. They're
Yeah,
still
and it's
happening.
so obvious. It's right in front of our faces. We get it. But
Right, which is why I was, all of this, yeah, together, it just kind of boggles my mind that it wasn't noticed right away. Um,
hmm
so, so on this report that I had found, which you're going to put in the notes, um, this is from page one. Traditional analog electromechanical electric meters have a ground connection as well as surge protection, which is based on spark gap technology, like a spark plug. The spark gap functions like a circuit breaker and protects the house from surges and overvoltage connections. This spares the meter, the building's wiring, and the plugged-in electronics from damage and fire. New smart AMI, AMR digital meters do not have this surge protection and do not have a connection to the ground. Institute of Electro Institute of Electrical Electronics Engineers says we are seeing a spate of reports from around the United States and indeed around the world of fires believed to have been caused by smart meters that were faulty, incorrectly installed, or connected to circuits that were unfortunate and unforeseen effects. Oh, where there were unfortunate and unforeseen effects. This appears not just as a matter of freak incidents that may or may not have taken place here or there. Obviously, all companies with smart meter programs and all their suppliers and subcontractors are going to have to take a close look at the issue of fire hazards. So that's how this report starts out.
hmm
Um, one of the other things I found out is I'm going to continue reading a bit more from this, but so the electric companies are saying we didn't make the smart meters, we didn't test them, so it's not our fault.
Oh, of
And the
course.
smart meter companies are saying we didn't connect these smart meters to these houses. It's not our fault.
hmm
Like nobody wants to take
No, not at
responsibility,
all.
and they're not fixing the fucking problem.
No.
Sorry.
No, I'm with you.
I'm
Hey.
sorry. Um, so let's see. Here's a 7/21/19, which was a little bit over a year after my fire.
hmm
Make a report on SM fire and electrical hazards. This is all from the report that they had done. Like I said, this is a 50-page report. I only got into a few, maybe a dozen or so pages. This is, and I've read the whole thing before, but I've only
hmm
taken that much. I ended up getting burnt out again. Like I started deep diving into this again, and just getting overwhelmed, and
Understandable.
feeling the trauma come back. and which is why I had to be like, okay, I can't do it this weekend. And then this last time I said, I'm not going to do that this time. Um, I'm just gonna, live my life. I know my story. I know the story. I know what this
Hmm.
says. Stop stressing about it.
Sure.
So, I've got 7 pages of stuff. We'll get to what we get to here. Um, so this report on SM fire and electrical hazards. This is just the beginning of a difficult story. Companies installing smart meters already have run into a lot of consumer pushback because of concerns about privacy, security, and sometimes higher rather than lower electricity costs. The last thing the smart grid needs is meters causing fires. Ah, page 2.
Hmm.
Utility companies and regulatory commissions have publicly denied these problems. Fire and electrical risks have not been disclosed to the public. In California, the California Public Utilities Commission refused to release results of a 2013 preliminary investigation on smart meter fires and declined to investigate further. California fire officials have yet to launch a public investigation despite continuing problems. And we know this is happening more than just in California. I live in
Hmm.
Oregon. These electrical problems include and it says page number as these electrical problems include, and it'll be page number for each problem that they talk about.
Hmm.
I didn't get to all of this, but this is a really interesting list. Lack of surge protection, um, no direct path to ground, National Electrical Code by 240 violation 9, no protective device coordination study 10, catastrophic failure, a new meter failure mode 11, page 11, sorry, overheating, inferior materials, burned meter to meter box contacts, which is what I had, faulty remote disconnect switch, arcing, circuit boards in electric meters. Melting solder can create new circuit board pathways for electricity to arc. Meters don't fit sockets, thinner blades, pitting, malfunctioning temperature alarms and sensors, switching mode power supply, surges and appliances damage. So these surges can also cause fires in the appliances. So if an appliance is, caught on fire, um, how often are they going to know to then, look back, towards the smart meter saying, well, where should this have shut off?
Hmm.
The smart meter should have shut off to keep it from surging into the house, right? Um, where was I? Pitting malfunctioning temperature alarms and sensors, switching mode power supply surges and appliance damage. That's where I was. RF signal and SMPS transients routed into building wiring, interference with AFCIs, GFCIs, moisture, heat, and flammable lithium batteries, which we were talking about,
Hmm.
risks from AMI, AMR water meters, UL certification of meter models that cause fires. So they've certified them, yet they're causing fires. That UL that we see on our electrical equipment,
Hmm.
it's that's not a full safe right there. It's flawed, obviously. Flawed FCC requirements and testing, inadequate worker qualifications and training, poor installation quality, vulnerability to hacking, danger due to meter location, vibration, and heat in building materials from RF emissions, accelerated corrosion, violation of FCC grants of equipment authorization. So, so that's just the list of what
Hmm.
they get. So that's no, pardon me, not done with the list. Here's the second page. Uh, Removal of meters from fire scenes, which is what they did to me.
Yeah.
Hampered investigations, right? Non-specific and inadequate fire coding, punished whistleblowers, Bobby Reed, Don Baker, Patrick Wrigley are the names that they use in this article. elimination of monthly inspections by meter readers. I've never had an inspection. I've never seen anybody come up for an inspection.
Mhm.
Increased terpenes in surrounding trees due to stress. Inaction from fire safety administrators. Inaction from regulatory agencies, exemptions, and loopholes. News media censorship and failure to investigate. Regulatory Commission defense of smart meter program. Unsafe time of use rates. Utility company lack of transparency and misinformation. Insurance industry silence.
Of course. Yeah.
So that is the list that this article goes into,
Hmm.
and um, some
What do
I'm
you
gonna
think
read a
it's
list.
going to take to see change? That, or do you think it's not going to happen because these corporations, these organizations are just so, you know,
People speaking out,
hmm
and people have, right, Kai? That's what I'm saying. People have spoken out. People are speaking out, and they will continue to speak out.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
think a big shift was, especially with Lahaina and those fires in Pacific Palisades.
yeah,
Hmm.
well, Palisades that just happened in the Palisades. Then we had the Paradise fires that happened
And
in
Oregon's had them too. In Northern California, Oregon, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that year, it was the same year that my house went
Hmm.
up, with the Paradise fires. Um, yeah, yeah, and I don't know where to turn from here. This article is like this article is fire. This article is fire in
Hmm.
itself, with everything that it goes into. Like I said, it's 50 pages long. It has all of its sources listed. I had, like I said, I started going through this article again, which I had done last time,
Hmm.
which is what, 3 days of hours and hours and hours. Um, and I started like taking, copy and pasting parts of this, of just the parts I wanted to like go over, and it started getting longer and longer. And I kept pulling up, these articles that are listed in connected to this journal article. I would, I had a whole list of those articles pulled up.
Hmm.
And just got overwhelmed. So I was like, okay, this is, that's going to be too much. It's too much. Um, so I'm just gonna, just stick with the notes that I have here. And if anybody wants to uh, dig deeper into that, it is traumatic. It's very traumatic,
Hmm.
and I encourage people to actually go look into it and see what they find, and um, see what they can do with it. Being aware, knowledge is
Hmm.
power. Uh, so here's another part from this article. With smart digital meter, when the Varistor, VARISTOR, blows out, the current from the utility pole, including high voltage current, will flow directly into the building if any appliances or electronics are drawing power, and many of today's electronics and appliances are always on. The result can be burned wiring, damaged electronics and equipment, including well pumps and fires. In the last 12 years, utility companies have launched major rollouts of electronic digital meters across the United States and globally for electric, natural gas, and water service. These meters include wireless transmitting of smart or AMI meters, AMR meters, and ERTs, and power line communication meters. Due to meter design and function, these digital meters can malfunction in several ways. Electric digital meters can allow surges and over outage to flow into buildings, which can burn wiring and destroy appliances and electronics, which I'm sorry, repeating myself. um, let's see. Uh, there we go. It's just what it was. What is going on is they're expanding on the beginning of what I had read. So they
Hmm.
can interfere with arc and ground fault circuit interrupters. Meters have exploded and have caused fires. They have likely contributed to the severity of other fires. So even with the forest fires, as they're coming through and we see these houses just in complete ashes, everything
Hmm.
ashes around, um, it is contributing to make these fires worse. Uh, some of the fires have resulted in the death of people and their pets. Water and gas, AMI, AMR digital meters pose additional hazards. These problems are known to the industry, regulatory commissions, some fire officials, the news media, and insurance companies, and were the subject of a dispute before the National Labor Relations Board. This paper is on known problems with meters used in the US and Canada, but electrical problems and fires are occurring internationally.
Hmm.
Uh,
Jeez.
so here we go. Page 9. National Electrical Code violation. National Electrical Code, Section 240.4, 240.4, protection of conductors other than flexible cords, flexible cables, and flexible fixture wires shall be protected against overcurrent in accordance with their ampacities, specified in 310.15, unless otherwise permitted or required in 240.4. All electrical components must be protected by a circuit breaker, is what that's saying. The NEC also says Article 230 service equipment overcurrent protection, where 230.90, where required, each underground service conductor shall have overload protection, underground conductors. Overcurrent device required, a fuse or an undercurrent trip unit of a circuit breaker shall be connected in series with each underground conductor. A combination of current transformer and undercurrent relay shall be considered equivalent to an overcurrent trip unit. Analog meters were grounded, so our old meters were grounded. They are
Hmm.
directly
Exactly.
to the ground via spark gap technology, protected from surges. Again, this is expanding on what I had said earlier or read earlier. Smart digital meters are not grounded. Utility companies were granted an exemption from 240.4 when they were using analog meters, not electronic devices. Now, however, utility companies have replaced analog meters with electronic smart digital meters and haven't made any provision for that change by installing a circuit breaker
Hmm.
within the unit. When there's a surge, it goes directly to the smart digital meters circuit board with potentially catastrophic results. Since utility companies changed the nature of the meter, did not put in a circuit breaker, and have not revised the situation with the regulating body, they could not be found in violation of the terms of the National Electrical Code exemption. I don't get that.
No,
Um,
I don't either. It makes no sense.
right? I'm going to read that again and see if it makes it. Since utility companies changed the nature of the meter, did not put in a circuit breaker, and have not revised the situation with the regulatory body, they could be found in violation of the terms of the National Electrical Code exemption. That
Oh, they
sounds so.
could. I thought they, why? I thought it was more like they're just getting away with it. I didn't think that it, you know, so.
Well, they are. They are.
Mhm.
What they're saying is they could be found in violation of the terms of the National Electric Code exemption. They could be.
But chances of that
Why
happening
aren't
are slim to none.
why aren't they? If they could be, what then? Why aren't they? And why isn't this being changed?
And why is
It-
no lawyers taking it? Why is no,
because the electric company and the smart meter companies have a lot more money, and
hmm,
direct dragging it on.
yeah,
I mean, but like they're going after PG&E.
hmm,
This is the same companies.
yeah.
Anyways, yeah, all electrical equipment is expected to fail eventually. Oh wait, sorry, let's skip something. Electrical, page 10. Electrical engineer Tony Simmons. I am a retired electrical engineer licensed in Nevada and California. I have 11 years experience with the electric utility meter operations. The problem is meters and sockets are not known to be properly protected with the correct fuse. All electrical equipment is expected to fail eventually. The question is not, does it create a hazard if it fails? The question is, does it create a hazard when it fails? The answer depends on the rating of the fuse protecting the meter and the socket. So goes on to say, the first instruction below is to use fuses. The second instruction is to not use the meter as a protective device. Do not rely on the remote switch as a safety feature. From the oh, all voltage paths must be fused. Do not use any meter functions or features for primary protection purposes. Do not install the meter where failure of the device could cause death, injury, or release sufficient energy to start a fire. The more practical solution is to use the correct fuse to protect the meter and socket as ITRON indirectly instructs. This is where the electric utility industry went wrong, big time. If utilities were required to install a circuit breaker outside the meter, between meter and building, the costs would have been substantial. Oh, I think we found one of the issues. The costs
Mm-hmm.
would have been substantial, and the utility companies likely wouldn't have been able to make their business cases to the state regulatory commissions.
Ah, yes, right there. Mm-hmm.
So, so money is more important than people's lives, than putting people through trauma, than
Mm-hmm.
making it fucking safe. Sorry.
No,
I,
yeah, I'm with you. It's maddening, that
and this is
this is
it,
happening and that it's just being like you said though, it's not being ignored because people are speaking out and and more times when these things happen, people are going left and right, sharing these things out and being the voice for humanity.
right, right. And I've sat with this feeling quite alone,
Hmm.
with this information, not feeling heard, not feeling listened to. And so when you had sent out that invitation to come do this podcast, and I'm like, I thought about it, and immediately I was like, yes, I want to do
Hmm.
this. Um, but internally, it's taken a lot to get
I'm sure.
to the
Hmm.
point, and because I know how fired up, pun intended, I get about this, um, and I know how much it burns me out, quite
Hmm.
literally, um, pun intended.
But
So
not only that, I mean, you're someone, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you're someone who's out there, standing for humanity. And you said you've been doing it since you were what, 11 years old?
yeah, I've been an activist since I was 11 years old. We'll digress a little bit before I get back to this. It'll be a nice break.
Hmm.
When I was 11, I started, like most pre-adolescent kids, rebelling and talking back to my mom and kind of being, a little shit.
Hmm.
And my mom said, she was aware of what was going on in the world, and she wanted to, do something about it. And so she said, hey, look, let's take all this angst, all this teenage angst, and take it to the front lines of the peace movement,
Hmm.
and and do something positive with all this
Yeah.
energy that you have, and all this anger and rebellion that you have. And she was very wise in doing that, and especially considering that the people that I was hanging out with, I grew up in Oakland, California, and my best friend at the time, their family was involved with the Hells Angels, and my mom,
Wow.
saw what was going on with that family and saw what I was exposed to, and she said, "Hey, look, I see what you're, you're around, and I want you to look at that and ask yourself what you want for you in your life, if that's what you want, and
Hmm.
make your choice, make choices, make good choices." And then she took me out to the front lines of the peace movement, and we had a grand old time, and I learned a lot, and uh, a lot more than I think most, just about, most of the kids my age. It was very rare I saw anybody my age involved in the peace movement. And I went with my mom, and
Mm-hmm.
she was even the younger, at that time she was, the younger generation in that crowd too.
Sure.
Um, and every now and then, there'd be somebody that was, her age, and they'd be, dragging along their teenager, uh, and so it was a treat to have
Mm-hmm.
somebody my age that understood what was going on in the world, um, like I did, and it was an amazing upbringing, and for all that we went through, and all the flaws that she had, she was a very um, wise woman, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I miss her a lot. However, so I started standing, and I started, before that, she knew who I was. I was always, I love animals, and um, while I didn't protect myself um, from my sister, who was a whole nother issue, I would protect other people.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody else was getting, hurt, I would protect them, but I didn't want to hurt anybody. But I would stand up for other people. I'd stand up for animals. That's just kind of who I've always been.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when I started doing this deep dive on the electric meters, I saw how many people are affected. Like, this is not just my story. This is,
No, not at all. Mm-hmm.
this is a story. Like, yeah, there's trauma. Yeah, I could tell my story in the beginning, but when it comes to this is happening to so many people, and I want to take it to lawyers. I want lawyers to take it on because I want them to stop. I want
Yes.
him to,
Mm-hmm.
I want him to fix the fucking problem. And if it costs them a substantial amount of money, if
Yeah.
that's what it takes to get them to fix it, good, because I can do a lot with money. There's a lot of things that I would like to do with money to help people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that could go, I just, the whole money issue is a whole nother social construct that we need to look at, because this is killing people, and it always has, whether we're talking about these big electric and development companies, we're talking about car companies, whether we're talking about healthcare, um uh
Exactly.
you know it all comes down to money fucking things up and fucking our world up.
Mm-hmm.
um and yeah, and it's killing us, and we need to say yes, baby. I am all excited
Mm-hmm.
about this. My dog is she's a very in tune to my feelings, uh so she's
Sure.
kind of whining at me to settle down. Good girl, she's such a good girl.
Mm.
um so something, if anything, the information needs to be out there. uh And let's see, I'm on page 5 of 7, so I'd like to go ahead and continue
Yeah.
reading
Go
a bit.
for
Yeah. Let's see, where was I? Oh, yeah. The costs would have been substantial, and utility companies likely wouldn't have been able to make their business cases to the state regulatory commissions. In addition, the public would have raised safety questions about the new meters versus the analog meters and refused to fund them. In addition, master disconnect switches for buildings are often located next to electric meters. A meter fire makes it impossible for emergency responders to access the switch and turn off electricity to a building in case of a fire. That's engineers. Sometimes I wonder. Electricity has to be disconnected at the pole by the utility company, resulting in a dangerous delay. This is another serious safety problem that is not addressed. Hey, Kai, say hi.
it. There you go.
Okay.
Yes.
Sometimes we just need some sweetness in our life. There we go.
Sure.
That's Kai. Where were we? Electricity has to be disconnected at the pole by the utility company, resulting in dangerous delay. This is another serious safety problem that is not addressed in state and local electrical codes. Oops. Pardon that. Page 11, according to industry experts, smart digital meters are subject to new failure modes. One of these new failure modes is catastrophic failure. So they made a new mode for the smart digital meter, which is catastrophic failure. Analog electrical mechanical meters do not have this failure mode because they weren't starting fires. Electrical failure, page 12, a catastrophic failure has been defined by Kai, all done. Nope, all done. Go lay down. Thank you. Good boy. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
He's gonna play with the dog. Kai, leave it. Hey, buddy, leave it. Hold on. It's getting what it is. I'm gonna give it a second here.
Yeah, you're good.
It doesn't usually last terribly long. A catastrophic. Hey guys, knock it off. Hey, ball. Go get it. Go get your ball. Distraction. A catastrophic failure has been defined by the consultants and industry as a meter which has burnt, melted, blackened, caught fire, arced, sparked, or exploded, blown from the premises. Because that happens too. They will explode and blow from the premises.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you guys are seriously literally under my feet. This is not it, buddy. Go on. Guys, hey, outside. Come on, go outside. Go outside. Time, take it out. Outside. Go. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. All right. He can stay outside. So I'm going to read that part again. A catastrophic failure has been defined by the consultants and industry as a meter which has burnt, melted, blackened, caught fire, arced, sparked, or exploded, blown from the premises. Overheating, inferior materials, digital smart meters have electronics inside which create heat. Analog meters do not have electronic components which generate heat. The electronics inside smart meters typically employ metal oxide, here's that word again, varistors, MOVs, for overvoltage surge protection. The problem arises from the lack of the heavy heat sinking capacity of the MOVs. This is needed in order to avoid failure due to the overheating when they are energized. So there's a lack of the heavy heat sinking capacity of the MOVs. The physical construction of the smart meters, does not allow for the heat generated by the energized MOVs to escape into the environment, as there are few metal parts to act as a heat sink. Under the right conditions of the overvoltage and line impedance, it may be possible to cause the MOV to burst into flames. The fire marshal's report from Ontario, Canada, noted overheating and fires associated with MOVs. Kai, leave it. All done. Norman Lambe, a California insurance adjuster, has investigated fire-related smart meter incidents. In 2015, he said that overheating is a primary cause of these fires. He said that meters spark and make too much heat when they operate, and the materials within the meters are flammable in the right heat conditions. Today's meters are light. The old ones were heavy and dissipated heat a lot better, actually, said Ken Dimfel, manager of meter engineering with American Electric Power, while discussing the temperature data analytics at Utility Analytics Week in New Orleans. The UK East Sussex Fire Service reports the amount of current being drawn is an important factor, since the greater the current, the higher the risk of resistance heating in a poor connection. Hi, Kai. Burned meter to meter box connections. Engineer William Bathgate's smart meter was installed in 2015. By 2017, due to network malfunctions, the utility company wasn't receiving the meter's wireless data transmissions. So they started sending him estimated bills. He decided to opt out when the AMI meter was removed. He says, I discovered that the one set of contacts had all burned up from excessive heat. This was a new meter box in 2015. In 2015 and in use for about 2 years. It could have easily led to a meter fire without warning. 1 second, please.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, if I had not changed my meter, I would never have known there was a problem. How many other meter boxes are at risk with the same conditions today? The only way we know is when we begin to see more meter fires. Unfortunately, once a fire begins at the meter contacts, all evidence of the root cause are near impossible to determine. I'm going to read that again. Unfortunately, once a fire begins at the meter contacts, all evidence of the root cause are near impossible to determine. The utility company, without any evidence that the meter fire occurred due to consumer wiring, the utility concludes without any evidence that the meter fire occurred due to consumer wiring. Had I known that placing an AMI meter on my home would lead to burned contacts on my home, I never would have permitted its installation. You know, how many of us would
Yeah.
have? I think we wouldn't have.
No, many people would have, yeah, said no.
Right. And so that's as far as I got on that 50
Mm-hmm.
page report. And again, it talked about, even with all this information, that lawyers aren't taking it on. They're not changing anything. Um, there's no responsibility. There's no help for
No.
people, and they make it very, very hard for people to um, change it back to an analog meter, which is
Mm-hmm.
something I want done. That my new house has a fucking smart meter on it, and I am, I had talked to the company, and they were insistent that I had to have a smart meter and I could not have an analog meter because it was a new build, blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Their old
and
spiel.
Yeah, yeah, and top it off, and as incompetent as they are, there's still the junction box, the temporary box that they put up while my house was being built. Um, they put a temporary box up, and they never took that out.
Oh.
Just
Mm-hmm.
um, and yeah. Anyways, I'm at the point where I'm exhausted. I'm burnt out. I was finally able to finish up. Well, I know I didn't finish school. I got my BA. I was working
Mm-hmm.
towards my MA, which I should have had.
Okay.
And but I couldn't do anymore. And during that time, so it was 2018, the house burnt down. Started the house getting rebuilt in the end in 2019, and then I went back to school. I lost 7 people that first year, passed away.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot. I've gone through a lot. I'm still going through a lot, and just kind of burnt out. And now I'm working at a job that I could have done without going to school, just because it's something that I feel that I can take on, and
Yeah.
just I should be making more money, I suppose. But I enjoy doing the work that I do. I work with people with disabilities, and I do one work with them in their homes, and it's a nice job. I enjoy my clients. I enjoy my
Mm-hmm.
work for the most part.
And at
uh,
least, yeah, you're doing something that's rewarding for you and you're making a difference, you know? So,
yeah, and and that's that's really where I come from with this is, I want to make a difference. And I don't know if this will make a difference, if anybody will see it, but if they do, that's great. Um, if it's, if it's picked up and something happens, that would be awesome.
Mhm.
Uh, there's so much more in this report. There anything that you want me to hit on?
No, and I'll gladly, even if for some reason I can't link the 50-page report, I'll, say you can email me and I'll send you a copy of the report, in the notes so that people have access to the information. So,
Right. Um, yeah. Yeah, in the it's just really insidious when you start looking into the report uh and start seeing that where's that the insidiousness of these companies not taking responsibility and not changing anything. And this was again in 2018 that happened to me. This report I think was done in 2019 or 2020.
mhm.
Uh, and here we are, what, 5 years, you know,
Past that,
from,
and
from the
mhm.
report, 7 years from the fire, and this has been been going on since before mine. They've known this for a long time. I don't get the inhumanity of people and how they can classify companies as a person
It's just corporations and greed, wouldn't you say? I mean, it's kind of
when
like
they don't
so
care about people.
obvious.
Yeah, they
No,
don't.
they don't. Hmm.
Yeah, they don't care. They what they're doing is they're taking advantage of people and they're mining us. They
Hmm.
mine us for whatever resources we can give to them. And
Yeah.
I don't get it because there's so much abundance in this world. There doesn't
Hmm.
need to be greed. There doesn't need to be billionaires. It doesn't, there's
No.
enough houses, there's enough food, there's
Hmm.
there's enough water. If we didn't waste it in the ways that we're wasting it and seeing the greed come down. I digress. However, yeah, that's kind of where I stand
Yeah.
on this. And and we, yeah, we all use these technologies. Not
Hmm.
all, we in particular are using these technologies um on a day-to-day basis, and how can, I look at my life and saying, how can I be responsible in what I'm using?
Yeah.
Um, and right now I'm, you know, my phone is, oh God, I should probably plug it in here. What? My phone is, this is the phone that I got after the fire. So this
Hmm.
is from 2018. I've not got a new phone.
Oh
I
yeah. No, it works great.
and it has been. It's been a great phone.
Hmm.
And then my computer is this old computer that has some streaks in it that was used when I got it, refurbished, whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, at the time I had the money, I could have gotten a new computer, but I'm big about getting, used things when and
Hmm.
where I can. Um, and yeah, you can see a lot of vintage stuff in my house. There's my
Oh,
dog.
very nice. Yeah. There you
Puppy.
go.
That's Kai.
Beautiful.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
Sorry, he just flipped my arm. Oh, and Mickey. Hi, Mick. Anyhow, but yeah, this is kind of my kitchen here.
Oh, very nice.
There's
I like that.
some oh, where'd he
Hmm.
go? There's some cupboards that are not done. I'm been working upstairs, painting.
You can't even tell. Yeah. Hmm.
But yeah, it's getting along.
Yeah.
Life is good. All I like I'm blessed with that. Um,
Hmm.
and the health that you have. Um, it's not perfect. I'm
Yeah.
able to get out and go demonstrate and be on the lines, and here we are yet again.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe make a difference in one way or another with whatever it is we have on day to day.
Yeah, and
And
you and I are out there making a difference, and that's what it
yeah,
takes.
you are.
So, hmm.
Yeah, Yeah, I've been looking at some of your videos and been, enjoying those
Hmm.
and getting to know you kind of through that. And it's the first time that we've talked. And I want to say thank you. I'm remiss and not saying thank you for having me on and to begin with.
Of course.
But I really appreciate
Yeah.
you
I'm
inviting me.
sorry that it's not on better circumstances, like, talking about what you're doing standing up, but this is a very important topic, and it is, taking against the corporations, going against the corporations, and you name it. So more power to you. And that's the one thing that you get and I get, is that we have to speak out because we have a voice. We are, and that there is, there's that analogy, there is strength in numbers. So,
Right, it is.
hmm
Yeah, and it's not about me. It's about all of us.
hmm
We're all affected
yeah,
by what's going on with these smart meters. We don't know, um, you know, we don't know enough. We don't know
no,
enough to make an informed, consensual decision to have these on our
hmm
houses when they're, causing harm. And this
exactly. Hmm.
this is one aspect of the issues with smart meters, and I'm not going to get into all the other stuff that I've learned in the deep dive. And um, and some people are can say that there's conspiracy theories about what smart meters do and what they don't do. However, I know exactly what it did to my house,
Hmm.
and they're not safe.
No.
And that's the angle that I'm coming from on this today.
Hmm.
Uh, that and not only that, these companies aren't safe. Lawyers aren't safe. These energy
No.
conglomerates aren't safe.
Hmm.
Uh, and now, we're having more and more of our regulatory commissions gutted.
Oh, for sure. Mhm. Yeah.
Cost effective, isn't
Hmm.
it? Right.
It is. Yeah. So,
So, yeah.
well, I
I could
hmm
burn it all down, but been there, done that.
yeah.
And it's
Hmm.
not easy to come back from, whether it's from, from losing all your, everything in your house to, to losing services, that we have, in the government,
Hmm.
burning it down, all down is not the way to go. It needs to be a process so people don't get hurt and people
Hmm.
don't the cracks.
Yeah.
But they're not worried about that. So it's not what this is about.
Hmm. Well, I really appreciate you, coming on as a guest and sharing your story, and hopefully it will make an impact on more and more people who were affected just like you were.